Before we look at the lumbar and sacral plexuses, we need to review the compartments of the lower limb. Very similar to the upper limb, except we're now going to have 3 compartments in both the thigh and the leg. So remember, the whole thing from the pelvis down is lower limb. You can subdivide that into the thigh, the part more proximal, as well as the leg, the more distal portion, which you would call your shin. We're going to start with the thigh. So we've got one big bone in the thigh, which is going to be our femur. And so we're going to have anterior up here, posterior here, medial, and lateral. And we're going to have 3 compartments. We're going to have an anterior compartment, a medial compartment, and a posterior compartment. Try to remember which muscle groups live in each of these compartments. Take a couple seconds. You can pause me. You can look it up in your lab notes from the fall, but try to recall it before I tell you which groups live in those compartments and then which functions. Does one of them flex? Does one of them extend? What goes where? All right, now I'll tell you. In the anterior compartment, we have got the quadriceps, and those muscles are responsible for giving us extension specifically at the knee. Some hip flexion as well. In the medial compartment, we have got the abductors. So those are going to be, the adductors. The adductors, which are going to be bringing the leg from away, the thigh from away from midline back towards midline. And then finally, posteriorly, we have got the hamstrings, which by process of elimination must provide us flexion at the knee, as well as some extension at the hip. So that is our thigh schematic. Moving down to the leg then, we're going to have 2 bones. We're still going to have anterior, posterior, medial, and lateral. The more lateral bone of our leg is going to be the fibula. The more medial bone is going to be the tibia. And here we're going to have a lateral compartment and then an anterior and posterior compartment. So it's weird because the leg has a medial compartment, but the thigh has a medial compartment, the leg has a lateral compartment. So they're kind of weird. Thinking about which muscles live where, remember we don't flex and extend at the ankle, instead we dorsiflex and we plantar flex. So as you're sitting there, if you point toes, that is the same thing as plantar flexion. And if you instead try to bring your toes back towards your face, so what people call flexing your feet, that is really dorsiflexing. So it is muscles in the anterior compartment that provide us with dorsiflexion, as well as extension of the toes. And it is muscles in the posterior compartment that are going to be involved in plantar flexion, as well as flexion of the toes. This lateral compartment, it's only got 2 muscles in there, and those muscles are responsible for eversion. So taking the sole of the foot and moving it laterally, eversion. And there you have the compartments of the lower limb.